Hello everyone and welcome to the recording from the previous webinar on June 16th, 2020. The secret is in the sauce. 5 key ingredients to use when designing an online course from scratch. I hope you enjoy the webinar. Catch me at jollyholly.me.
Okay, so welcome again, everyone, to The Secret is in the Sauce, a little play on cooking words here. 5 key ingredients to use when designing an online course from scratch. So we are in a very tricky time right now, and I thought this webinar was really timely, and I wanted to share my experiences with you as an online instructor and just a formerly trained educator to talk to you about how you go about figuring out what to do when you have to design an online course. And, we've gone into remote teaching. So the session expectations are that we're going to go through some of the information that I have for you, my key ingredients. And then, like I said before, we're going to have questions at the end. I do have somebody moderating the chat, so I don't have to worry about it as I'm presenting. So if you have questions right now, please place them in the chat. And then at the end of the session, I'll unmute everybody and we can have a little conversation. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and I do need a new headshot. I have a totally different haircut than this picture. My name is Holly Owens, and in my full-time position, I work as the Assistant Director of Instructional Design with Online Education at Touro College and University System. I also teach adjunct. I teach the Designing Online Instruction course with the Graduate School of Technology there. I started out my career in 2007 as a high school educator, and then I fell in love with technology, and I moved basically into instructional technology as an instructional technologist. Bounced around a few universities with various roles in instructional technology. And then instructional design started to become popular, and I love designing online courses and helping people design online courses. Sorry, I had to swap the displays there. And that is like my passion in life, is to be innovative, to be creative, to look at different technologies that you can use. So from there, I became an instructional designer in New York at the School of Health Sciences. And then I got a promotion to the assistant director position. And I'm really thrilled to be helping faculty members in my full-time role. Part-time, besides the adjuncting, I also have my own business, Jolly Holly Ed Services. So if some of you saw the webinar information, you saw that come from my business page. It's just something I started, coaching people who want to get into instructional design, helping instructors with their courses, or just giving advice about, where to go with things, especially during these difficult and challenging times with COVID. So my next adventure is going to be graduating next year with my EDD in Educational Administration and Leadership from Touro University in Nevada. And then who knows where the road's going to take me. So I'm really excited about, my past career and looking forward to what the future holds. So that's a little bit about me. Now I do have a poll that I would like for you to respond to. So let me pull up that poll. I'm going to launch it, and I want to know on which continent do you live? So where is everybody at? I know we have people from around the world. Some people are in a different day than we are. It's kind of cool. So I'll give about a minute for that. Okay, so majority are from North America, and then we have Asia, and then Europe and Africa. Somebody said Antarctica. Wow, you must be really cold. So I didn't know anybody lived on Antarctica, but somebody probably did that to be funny. All right, I'm going to end the poll. I'll share the results with you so that you can see where everybody is from. So thank you for those of you who are joining us from different time zones. I know this, probably isn't the best time for you East Coast time, but we're so glad you're here. All right. Now, when I start a presentation, I kind of like to rev it up a little bit with some information and a quote and some statistics. So that's what I'm going to go through right now. So I really enjoyed this quote, and I think it's an unknown who said this. I found this on the web, and there are 3 reasons to a piece of design: yes, no, and wow. Wow is the one to aim for. So every time I design a course, whether I've taught it 20 times or 1 time, I aim for that wow in my course. Am I going to incorporate a new technology? Am I going to incorporate a group activity? What am I going to do in my online course? There are 7.8 billion people on this earth. That is a lot of people who desire to be educated. They want professional development. They may want to do some trade school training. So that's 7.8 billion people that we're trying to reach and gain access to education. And online education has allowed people who previously didn't have access to now have access to education that, in different countries, in different states, if you're in the United States. So we can take different programs. So it's open up access. If you want to take a look at the growth of the tertiary education, which is post-secondary education, so university level education, and this is a little bit of older data. I couldn't find anything too recent, but 6 years is not that bad. These are the total people, percentages of the population who are enrolled after they leave secondary education. So for us in the United States, that would be high school, and they're going to the college or the university level. So you can see there's a variety here, and it's pretty large in North America and Europe and Central Asia. And then you have the rest of the world falling into place, and the world itself is at about 35%. So that's pretty awesome, considering how big the population is. That's a lot of people. So one of the things I considered in this presentation was thinking about technology and devices. So every 1 second, 127 new IoTs, Internet of Things, so smart devices, you can't see it, smart devices are connected to the internet. Now, coming from a generation myself, I'm considered a millennial. That's a lot of devices. I remember doing dial-up for the internet, and now we have multiple devices. I'm sitting here right now, and you probably are as well. You have your phone, you have your laptop or your computer. I have an extra computer screen. So 127 of those every second are connecting to the internet. And in 2020, the estimated is going to be 31 billion. That is a lot of devices that are connecting to the web and people that are communicating and networking, all kinds of different things. So this year was a little bit different for us in terms of COVID and how it impacted every facet of our lives. Really, I don't think, if you were sitting down thinking about, is there just one thing out there that just is going to impact everything? Impacts us going out to stores, going to the gym, taking walks, hanging out with our friends, our education, our jobs, transportation. Every facet of life has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And I just want to say, for those of you who have dealt with it directly, lost family members, I'm sending you positive vibes. Here in New York, we've been a hot spot, but it's finally starting to go down. We're following the social distancing rules. But really, when I think about this, it truly has impacted everything we do in life in trying to figure out how to stabilize and get back to a normal. But beyond that, education still continues. We decided in the United States, many of our courses, or all of our schools, basically went online, emergency remote teaching. That includes colleges and universities. That includes K through 12 education. So we had a plethora of people of different groups that had to take things online and do it quickly because the expectation was that students were going to be able to finish their education. They had either paid for it, or the K through 12ers, they needed to finish out before the summer. And that's what instructors did. That's what faculty did. That's what educators did. So education is still continuing. I know some jobs are still continuing, but it's really been prominent that we have a solid foundation laid out for education to continue no matter what's going on in the world. So we try to make things keep going because education is wonderful. Okay, so the reason you're here, let's talk about the key ingredients. I'm not a big cooker, but I thought it was suitable to talk about ingredients for this particular topic because when you're first starting out in designing an online course, it can be very overwhelming. There's so many different components that go into designing the course. It can definitely take its toll on your mind when you're trying to incorporate every little thing into the course. So I want to give you a few simple tips. So when you get started in designing an online course, whether you're in K through 12, you're in higher education, or you're designing something for workforce development, professional development, you're just, maybe your friends are doing something and you want to design something online, just to take these things into consideration as part of your ingredients or your repertoire when you're designing an online course. So ingredient number one, the first thing that I usually tell faculty that I work with in my full-time position or faculty when I consult is that when you're designing an online course, it's not really about you. It's really about the students, the participants. You are engaging them in an academic exercise, activities. You're trying to get them to a point in the course where they are maybe going into a job or they're going into a next course. So they need that foundational prior knowledge to be successful. So when you're first sitting down thinking about designing your online course, you have to think like a student, not when you were a student, the students now, because as we know, millennials, myself, 1980 to roughly early 90s, and then the Gen Zers who are up and coming have different attributes when it comes to how they learn. So you want to, maybe do some research about that. And one of the things I can point out is instant gratification. They really like instant gratification in terms of positive reinforcement, stuff like that. So when you're designing the course, think like a student. What would the students like to do? Would they like an activity, an essay? Is this aligning with my course objectives and everything? So think like a student, and if you can be creative and add in different components. So that is my ingredient number one. My second ingredient is related to thinking like a student, is design with the end in mind. And if you've ever worked with an instructional designer, or if you're a faculty that has been in the game for a while, you probably think like this, or you're a K through 12 educator. Where are the students starting in your class? And where do you want them to be by the end of your class? When you're designing the course, there's something in instructional design called backwards design. So you're designing with the end in mind. Where do you want them to go? And how are you going to get them there? So basically, figure out what is the end goal, what is the end result, and then work backwards from there with assessments, objectives, outcomes, and actually design the course that way. And I do have a tool that can help you with with keeping this in mind as you design your online course from scratch. So design with the end in mind. Ingredient 3, and this goes along with talking about designing with the end in mind. You want to create a course map. So again, to reiterate where students are starting and where they should be going. These mile markers represent points where you're checking in with your students, where there's particular assessments that the students have to complete to move on to the next phase of learning. Is something adaptive learning, where they need customized learning? Do they need some more support in a certain area? So a course map allows you to lay out the foundation of your course and do it specifically by your units, your topics, your modules. You know, really designing an online course, there's no silver bullet for like just saying, I'm gonna do this, and then you're like, well, where do I start? You know, this course map really allows you to pull out those specific pieces and lay it out for each of your units or your modules, your topics, whatever you're talking to the students about. And this has helped me as an educator and a faculty member so much, because when I use my course map, I write out the information and then I copy and paste it into my modules, maybe my overviews when I'm talking to the students, telling the students what they're going to learn in this particular unit. Or if I have an assessment, I'm connecting and aligning that assessment to the learning goals or the objectives of the course, because I am still considering the end goal here. What are they going to have to do once they leave my class? For example, in the class that I teach, the Designing Online Instruction course, students have to design an 8 to 10 hour training course on their own. And they have probably, some of them are educators, some of them are corporate instructional designers, and they may or may not have had the professional experience or knowledge or expertise to do so. So I have to basically, what we call in education, scaffold and chunk the content so that I'm not throwing everything at them all at once. It's in separate different pieces so that it's digestible to the students and they feel confident enough in their skills so that we can move on to the next brick or the next layer of information. So a course map really helps you lay that out, and it also helps you identify gaps in your curriculum or in your alignment of your assessments and goals and objectives. So I do have an example that I will send out to you. I have an example template that you'll get following this presentation that you can use when you are designing your course. And if you just Google this information, there are other ones out there, but I found a particular one that I'm really, I guess, biased to, that I've used before. So I'll send out that information to you. And of course, you can come up with your own. So a course map is essential for mapping out how your students are going to go through the course and how you're going to incorporate everything that you need. Ingredient number 4, and I really think this is important, especially nowadays with us being remote and not being in person, is we need to collaborate with others. You're not alone in this process. You're not the first person ever teaching an online course. People have done it for a long time now. It used to be called, we have distance learning. We had correspondence education back in the day where content was sent out via the mail. But now we have this very nice, LMS, if you use one of those at your institution. Other people have done it. So reach out to others and see what they've done. They can give you best practices and tell you things that you should avoid in creating an online class. I think it's so important that you have an accountability buddy, or you have somebody in your department or in your program that you can work with and bounce ideas off of, because sometimes you're in the course so much and you're designing, you're incorporating the technology, you're lining the objectives, you're attending the professional development trainings, but it's just so much and you're in there all the time, you see it all the time, you may not see something that is off. Something doesn't align properly. The assessment has typos in it, small things like that. So you can also incorporate, and when I say this, peer review into when you create an online course. Asking others how they did it. Have a friend, have a faculty buddy or an education buddy, go through your course. Put them in there as a student if you can, and see how it flows. Go through it yourself as a student, test it out, make sure it's everything you want. You throw all this stuff in there and then the students get to the first module and something's broke. A link's not working, that's important to a particular resource. So I think that having people that you can bounce ideas off of, like I said, or you can just get ideas from who've done it in the past, really helps develop the foundation of starting out in online education and online teaching and developing a nice online course. I will say, one of the things that I've learned over the years, and I've been online teaching for about 10 years now, is that your first iteration of your online course, the first one that you do, isn't always your best one. And that's okay. As long as students are able to learn and get through it and you reach that end result, it's fine. The more you get into the different iterations of your course, the better it's going to become. So I would say from an advice perspective, don't put too much pressure on yourself when you're initially designing that first online course. Get the components in, get the curriculum right, and then maybe you can add in some different things in the next iteration. Now let's talk about ingredient number 5. And this is probably my favorite ingredient because I just love this next one so much. I've been a person, it'll become more apparent when I change the slide, is the technology. Some of us are challenged with the technology, in terms of incorporating clickers or a Kahoot or a Padlet, or using the entire capacity of the learning management system, whether that's Canvas or Blackboard or Moodle or Desire to Learn or a homegrown one. These technologies have so much functionality that help us deliver and design our online classes and give students options. Technology is important in the online design because that's how you're reaching the students, whether that's through communication or you're having them talk through discussion boards and develop that sense of community with each other. The technology is the foundation on which this online course is designed. Beyond everything else, with an online class, you can't do anything without the technology. So if you're sitting here tonight or morning, whatever time of day it is, and you're thinking, I just don't want to learn the learning management system, or I just don't want to learn another technology, my advice to you is just be open to it. Because I have worked with numerous faculty members, different levels of technology use, and they've all gotten to the point, every single one of them. Maybe there's one in there that didn't get to like the point I wanted them to. They've all gotten to the point where they're like, you know what? The technology is really there in the supportive role of what I'm trying to do. It's not replacing the instructor, it's aiding the instructor. Like I said, it's a tool. And there are a ton. You can just Google educational technologies or LMS technologies features, and you'll come up with a million bazillion results. There are a ton of technologies out there. One thing I would advise to you, especially if you're starting out into an online course, is learn the platform that you're delivering on. Learn the basics. Then go to the more intermediate. Then go to the advanced if you feel comfortable and confident enough. You are going to develop your own repertoire of technology tools and features that you find are so useful in your class. You don't have to use every technology to be a successful online instructor. You have to use technology and just do it well enough so that your students are learning and it's not impeding them or creating barriers. So technology is my favorite ingredient, and it's an important component of starting out with designing an online course. So here in the US, we had a chef called Emerald. So bam, those are my ingredients. Now you have a great online course, right? No, there's more to it than that. Obviously, you have to sit down with yourself and you have to map everything out. You have to make sure you're meeting aligning goals and objectives. But those simple 5 things will definitely help you in starting out in developing an online course. If you just take those things into consideration. So let's review. So the first one I talked about is think like a student. Thinking like a student is essential. You don't want to, we've learned in a variety of different ways over the years. We learned through lecturing, teacher-centric learning. We have student-centered, there's learning styles, debate about whether those exist, but we all learn differently. But we really want to appeal to the current generation of university student, K through 12 students, so that they get the most out of the course, the stuff that they need to be successful in the world, the stuff, the content, the skills they need to be successful to move to the next level. It's really important. So think like a student. Ingredient 2, design with the end in mind. Always think about where they're going to end up and how they're going to get there. That is going to help you build the path to getting them to the students or participants to where they need to be. So designing with the end in mind. Create that course map. It's going to help you design with the end in mind. Lay out your objectives. Make sure they're measurable from Bloom's taxonomy perspective. Put in your assessments. Does a quiz work here? Does the discussion board work here? Does a Glogster, that's a virtual poster technology, does a Padlet work here? Does maybe a group activity? So you have to think about all the different things. Create that course map. And I would say make it diverse in terms of the activity. So going through that and seeing, are you doing quizzes every week? That can become cumbersome. So try to diversify your assessments or your activities in your class. Collaborate with others. It's so important that we reach out to others, especially right now, to get advice about what we're doing in online education since it's new. We started out with emergency remote teaching because we went and we had Zoom enabled courses, especially in the United States. And now we're trying to bump it up. We're trying to go take that path to being actually online education. And there is a difference between remote teaching and online education. And I have an article from EDUCAUSE I can send if people are interested in reading about that. I won't go into all the concepts about that. Then finally, technology. You can't do online without technology. You need internet, you need a computer. Students may need a mobile device. They may need access to certain systems, software through your course. So make sure that you have access to the technology and that you know how to use it. You feel comfortable and confident in your skills. And I always say, when I talk about this, my grandfather always tells me work smarter, not harder. And a lot of the time I can incorporate technology into my life, my professional life, my personal life, and it just makes things easier on my end. I'll give you an example. Grading. I use the gradebook and the learning management system because it makes my life simple. It collects the assignments from the students. I can attach a rubric to the assignment and then I can easily grade it. The students know what the expectations were for them in terms of the grading, how they're going to be graded, and there are no surprises. And also, I can spend an hour or less grading long essays and put in a few comments, give them some things to work on, and then, go back to my normal life. So really, it does help expedite, some of the processes or streamlines. So these are the 5 essential, I say 5 ingredients that I would say from my perspective as a educator, faculty member, instructional designer that you need to put in the mixing bowl and use when you are first starting out designing an online course from scratch? So now I want to know, what are your questions? And I think we have some questions in the chat, and Jennifer's also been texting me. What are your thoughts on creating for regular and substantive interaction? Also, do you think there needs to be discussion board each week? When I get these types of questions, I think that it's important to consider your content and the audience that you are speaking to or that you are dealing with. You know your students or your participants best, and you know your content best because you're the subject matter expert. Discussions each week do allow for interaction from the students, but sometimes those also become cumbersome if you're doing the same things every week. Answer these questions, respond to due classmates. Read this information, respond to due classmates. Summarize this. You see, so it can become very boring to the students, and they're not activating the parts of their mind that we want them to. We want them to connect with the content. We want them to connect it to something they do in their professional life, or, you know, connect it to another piece of information that we've talked about in the course. So I would say, for if you're using discussion boards every week, I would really encourage you to try to change it up. One of the things I like to do is expose my students, since I have teachers and corporate trainers in my class. I like to expose them to different types of educational technologies they can use. So like a Padlet. I also change it up where the students have to record videos instead of typing text all the time. They record a video. So it challenges them to really think about what they're doing on the screen, and they have to come up with a script. And it works on their public speaking skills. So some of them the soft skills. So you really have to be creative if you're using discussion boards every week. Now for an English class, it might just be those readings. So again, reiterating, it really depends on the content. What is your thought about digital transformative learning area from traditional education system onboard and market method? That's a great question. And I don't know if I entirely understand what you're asking. So I'm going to let you guys unmute. So if you ask that question, I would love for you to unmute and kind of clarify for me. I can talk a little bit about, you know, going from the traditional classroom to what we call now, you know, online education, the lecture-based, the sage on the stage, the instructor-centered stuff. And now we're adapting to the learning styles or the learning attributes of the current generation and trying to make sure that the next generation of participants or students are successful in the jobs that are now coming out in our market. But I'm not sure that I entirely understand the components of that question. I may have just skimmed the surface on that. What are the other technologies used besides Kahoots, polls, and virtual boards? Oh, that list goes so far and so deep. Kahoots are wonderful for students even at all levels of education, even participants in the professional workspace. We've used them. Faculty members and educators have become so excited to see that sort of a technology. I really love using things that are different, that haven't been used before or have been used before, but I like to put my own spin on it. And you know, and some of these things they're simple things. Like I use TED Talks in my graduate level course, and the TED Talk may not be applicable to specific to the topic I'm talking about, but somehow the students and I, when we have a conversation, we relate it back to the topic at hand. So it comes for full circle. So that's not really technology, that's more of a resource. And if you want to chat offline, Nicole, I can definitely give you a list of all the things that I use, because if I listed everything out, we'd be sitting here for a very long time. But that's another great question. Oh, one thing I will say, since we're in Zoom, and if you have access to Zoom, I use breakout rooms because I teach a synchronous online course, and we do group conversations, and we do like jigsawing, and we do like group presentations. So I put the students in breakout rooms, and that's been a favorite of mine for the past year or so. It's putting those students in those particular rooms, and then we come back to the main room and they present their group project or whatever they're doing, or we have a discussion as a class. So it's a really nice, and you can pop in and out as the instructor to just check on them as if you were in a face-to-face classroom and just walking around the room to check in with them. Because I know when I was a high school teacher, I would be, walking around to my different tables and just checking in and asking them if they have any questions. All right. Oh God, we got more questions. Do you have a preference for design software LMS? Well, I'm going to be biased in what I say because I've used Blackboard, Moodle, Canvas, and I've used Desire to Learn as a student, and I'm a huge Canvas fan, and that's my own personal bias. I just love the clean interface, and I love how easy and intuitive it is for end users, and it's open source, so what you can incorporate it into it, the LTIs, it's done so many great things for me and allow me to do things in my online class that I just love. But the other ones, and it really depends on what you're looking for, because they're all very similar. They just have different things in different places, and one may do something that the other doesn't do. Canvas has speed grader, Blackboard has the grade center and inline grading. So, there's a lot of different things to consider when you're looking at an LMS platform. Now, corporate's a little different. So like Talent LMS, there's some other ones out there. I'm not as familiar with the corporate. I do know them because of the course I teach, but the education ones, I'm a huge Canvas advocate, Panda advocate, whatever you want to call it, because Panda is their mascot. So that's my favorite. Does Canvas have a tool for student journaling? Yes, it does. It's not called journals, but if you create an assignment, they can upload it text-based. So it's like a journal, say that you would use in Blackboard. So you say, submit it as a text-based assignment, and then they are just typing on the screen and submitting it, and that's what you see on the back end. So just like the Blackboard journaling tool, if that's what you're referring to. When you say collaborate, is it with other IDs or collaborating through the course? When I say collaborate with others, I mean anybody that has experience teaching online. If that's an instructional designer at your particular organization or institution, then collaborate with that instructional designer. If that's a teacher in your particular program who has done a really great job organizing the course, I would say collaborate with them. Some institutions have set up opportunities where they've identified champions in their particular programs. And those champions are the people you go to get the information, about like, well, how does this work in the LMS if the instructional designers. Jen just texted me and she said they want a list of your favorite engagement tools. Okay, I will come up with a list and I will send that out with the recording and the presentation. And maybe that's for a future presentation to go through my favorite engagement tools, because there are so many that I use. And I actually have to sit down and think about each one. So are there any other? I see there's 50. Let me see if I can pull up. I love it that you guys have been, talking through the chat. So one of the questions that I got privately is, do you have any information, about how you support the quality assurance of things? So that's something I didn't mention in this, going through and designing a course from scratch, but your institution or organization might have something like Quality Matters or OLC Scorecard, Oscar. We have an internal one that we use where we review the courses and we provide instructors with feedback about the quality of their design, whether that's instructor presence or that's communication with the students, or it's about the design of the course. So you may have that at your institution. And I would say if you don't, or if you're just starting out in a course from scratch, those rubrics can act as a really great checklist for you in designing your first online class. So I would say that, if you can, Oscar's public, so it's not proprietary. QM is subscription based. So you can go look for quality assurance rubrics if that's something you're interested in. And again, that would be a really great checklist for you in terms of designing your online course. And let's see if there's any other questions I could answer. Let me see. I got some. Let's see. And if you're looking, if your institution's looking for like an LMS transition, or you're in the, you want to see, you know, how different ones are rated, there are things out on the web that do that. Okay, we have about 15 minutes left, and I just have a couple little things I'd like to mention before I stop the recording, and I'll stick around for more questions. Two of my great connections on LinkedIn and friends are running a 6-week course design group that if you're designing an online course, and they've already done one and it was so popular they had to add a second. So if you're interested in doing online designing, you want to learn something through 6 weeks throughout the summer, you can go through the Online Learning Toolkit, which is accompanied by Judith Datill and Melissa Weller, and you can use the code Holly Jolly and you get a, I forget what they said, off. But if you use that code, if you go to Online Learning Toolkit /cool, I love this, Camp Operation Online Learning, you can take that camp with them and learn different skills and how to design the online course that go beyond the surface level information that I'm sharing with you. So this will be included in the email, and also you'll see this in the presentation. So I really encourage you to go sign up for Cool. It's great stuff, and they're getting rave reviews about the first set of educators that went through the cohort who are designing the course. So if that's something you're interested in, I really encourage that, and it's reasonably priced. The other thing, you know, I want to market myself a little bit is on my website, I have some coaching options, and this could be coaching in terms of if you're professionally looking to get into the instructional design world, or you need some help with designing an online course. I do offer some coaching options for you, a 3-month or a 6-month option. And I do have a promotional thing going on right now. You get $5 off your subscription with that promo code. So if you want and you're interested, you can contact me. This is not, you know, meant to be salesy, but I do want to say that I've worked with several clients pro bono who have actually, you know, starting out with my startup, who've actually got positions in higher education. They were looking to move from K through 12 into instructional design, or they needed help with their courses, and they've excelled by leaps and bounds. It was really nothing I did. It was in them all along. So if you're interested in this, I have this information on my website, and you can definitely reach out to me. I really appreciate you coming to the session. We have about a good 15 minutes left, so I'll stick around for questions. If not, you can find me at jollyholly.me. That's my website. You can contact me, email me through there. You can look at, you know, some of the podcasts I've been on, the blog stuff. But thank you so much for coming. I hope you got something you can take and put into action from this particular webinar. And I'll be offering some more webinars coming soon with some certificates attached. So have a great evening, have a great morning, have a great day, and thank you so much.